The wind howled like it had something to mourn the night they met. The diner was nearly empty. Neon lights flickering against windows scratched from time Lennox was behind the counter, pouring coffee into a chipped mug. No one ordered it. It was just habit. The door swung open and in came a girl who looked like she'd run from something she almost didn't survive. She slid into a booth without a word. Her coat was too thin, her fingers trembling, her eyes holding a 1,000-yard stare. "You want coffee?" Lennox asked, voice flat but not unkind. "No," she whispered. Just silence. That was enough. She became a regular, always after midnight, always alone. Sometimes she ordered pie, sometimes just sat. He never asked why she came. He could see it in her posture, the same way his shoulders curled in after the accident that ended everything he'd built. He used to be a photographer, now he just brewed coffee and watched the past flash behind his eyelids every time headlights passed the window. One night she finally told him her name, Marin. She was 23 and she'd been diagnosed with dissociative PTSD after escaping a relationship that left her more shadow than flesh. "I still jump when I hear footsteps," she said, "even my own." He didn't flinch, just refilled her mug. A quiet friendship formed in the spaces between broken sleep and trembling sunrise. He showed her his old photos, portraits of forgotten alleys, lovers frozen mid-laugh, light pouring through cracked doors. She sketched them in the margins of napkins, her fingers remembering something delicate, something she hadn't touched in a long time. Then without warning, she stopped coming. 3 nights, then 5, then 10. Lennox tried not to care. People believe he knew that. But on the 11th night, he left the diner early and wandered the city, camera slung around his neck for the first time in years. He found her near the river, standing on the railing, tears mixing with sleet. "Marin," he said, breath-catching. She turned slowly. "I didn't come here to jump." "I know," he replied, "but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be stopped." She stepped down, sat on the pavement. "I was fine until I wasn't." He sat beside her. Same. They didn't talk much after that, just sat until the sun bruised the sky pink. He drove her home and waited outside until she turned the porch light on. After that night, everything shifted. They began taking photos together. He'd shoot, she'd draw. They created a gallery of forgotten corners and whispered memories. People came, not many, but enough to feel seen. One evening, standing under a December sky that finally snowed, she whispered, "What if I disappear again?" Lennox didn't hesitate. "Then I'll leave the porch light on. Always." And under that first snow, something unlabeled but unshakable settled between them. Not perfect, not painless, but real. And real was enough.
The first time Ava saw Elijah, it was 3:11 a.m. on the pedestrian bridge over Bleecker Street. She had just left the hospital. Her sister had relapsed again, and she couldn't bear the silence of her apartment. The bridge had always felt like the edge of something, the place where the city exhaled. That night, he was standing at the railing, headphones on, his breath fogging in the cold. She walked past him, Then stop, don't jump, she said, too harsh, too loud. He looked at her, startled. I'm not, he replied, I just like the view. Liar, she muttered and kept walking. She returned the next night, so did he. Elijah was a composer. At least he had been before the fire, before his left hand stopped working the way it used to. Now he taught music theory to high schoolers and stared too long at edges. He told Ava of the accident on the 4th night, the scars he kept hidden under gloves. She told him about her sister on the 5th, how addiction made love feel like watching someone drown and being too afraid to swim. They never asked why the other kept showing up. They just did. Ava had PTSD, though she rarely named it. She talked in pieces about their father's rage, the way her mother drank her shame, the way her sister followed. Elijah never interrupted. He listened like he was learning the rhythm of her voice, like her trauma was a song he wanted to understand. He began writing again, for her, about her, a single melody he called Ava at 3:11. She said it sounded like breaking ice and unsent letters. He smiled. That's how I know it's honest. They fell into something fragile, a coffee shop routine, a shared book left on the bench, gloved hands brushing in the cold. Ava didn't call it love. She was too afraid of what she'd lose if she did. One night in late March, her sister overdosed. Ava found her barely breathing. The hours after blurred sirens, fluorescent lights, guilt like a scream that wouldn't stop. She didn't call Elijah. She didn't return to the bridge. He waited anyway. 7 nights, then 10, then 14. On the 15th night, she appeared, dinner, eyes hollow. I kill everything I love, she whispered, standing at the railing. He shook his head. No, you just hold things that are already breaking. She cried for the first time in years, and he let her know fixing, just holding. Spring arrived slowly, her sister recovered barely. Ava stopped flinching at kindness. Elijah played her melody at a recital, his left hand shaky but determined. She stood in the back of the hall, crying quietly as he played. After he found her under the bridge, I don't know how to do forever, she said. Me neither, he answered, but I know how to do tonight. They kissed under streetlight shadows, broken and whole in the same breath. The bridge didn't save them. They saved each other. One night at a time.
The sky in Santa Fe always seemed too wide for someone like Mirashi. She moved through the world like she was afraid to touch it, quiet, calculated, as if her existence needed permission. Diagnosed with dissociative identity disorder at 22, she spent most days floating between herself and the versions of her that made it easier to survive. She met Nico on a Tuesday, standing in front of a mural outside the local cafe. He was sketching it with charcoal-stained fingers, humming under his breath. He glanced at her, then back to his pad. "You ever feel like color speaks louder than people?" he asked. She nodded, startled, all the time. They saw each other every day after that, always at the mural, as if the pain itself had stitched a thread between them. Mira never told Nico everything at first, just pieces that she lost time. That some days she couldn't remember where she'd been or why her clothes didn't match. He didn't press, just listened, like each word she gave him was something sacred. Nico had his own shadows, generalized anxiety disorder and mild Tourette's. He blinked too often when he was nervous and carried smooth stones in his jacket pocket to calm his hands. He called his anxiety the static. She called hers the split. One evening, Mira brought a small canvas. She handed it to him without a word. It was a portrait, fractured in style but whole in spirit, her in 3 expressions, one smiling, one scared, one watching from the corner. He stared at it for a long time, then whispered, "I like all of them, even the one who won't look at me." They shared their first kiss under the mural's fading light. It wasn't rushed, it wasn't loud, just 2 people trying to find themselves in someone else's quiet. But the past doesn't loosen easily. Mira had an episode in November, woke up 2 states away, unfamiliar motel, no idea how she got there. When she came home, Nico was on her porch, shivering, eyes tired. "I was afraid you'd forget me," he said. "I didn't," she replied, voice shaking. "I just wasn't the part of me that remembered." He took her hand and placed one of his smooth stones in it. "Then let's remember together." They began therapy together in December, not to fix each other, just to learn how to stay. Some days were impossible. Some days felt like progress, but every evening they returned to the mural. Even as the paint began to peel, they would sit there in silence, hands touching just enough to say, "I'm still here." On New Year's Eve, Mira whispered, "What if one day I'm not me again?" Nico smiled, "Then I'll learn to love the version of you who needs it most that day." And under the endless Santa Fe sky, they sat still, between heartbeats, between versions, between all the things they used to run from. Choosing to stay, choosing to try.